Hi there. Today we're going to talk about the book Undercover Agent, written by Mark Seaman. Now, Mark Seaman has written many books on wartime resistance, the SOE, and the Secret War. And the book covers the career of Tony Brooks. And Tony was living in France, age 17, when war broke out. And he initially tried to join the RAF, but he was too young. So he stayed in France and eventually, together with his aunt, started working on the escape lines, helping people to get out of France. And worked on the famous Pat line. And things, after a while, things got too hot and he was advised to leave. So he took one final party over the Pyrenees into Spain and made his way back to the UK. And, excuse me, in 1941. And he was vetted by MI5, given a clean vetting, and then again tried to join the RAF. And his medical raised the question of his feet, that he wasn't suitable for marching. And he said, well, I thought we'd be flying in aeroplanes. Oh, no, you've got to do drill. So the doctor said, well, you know, your feet are flat and they're in a bad way, but do you think you could march successfully, in your own opinion? So he said, well, I've just crossed the Pyrenees. So the doctor graded him A1 and he was allowed to join the RAF. Now, this was really needed at the time. So he had already been approached by SOE. Also, he was approached by MI9 as a result of his work in France. MI9 was the Escape and Evasion Service, and it was part of SIS. And he was interviewed by its boss, Jimmy Langley. But unfortunately, there was an MI9 officer in France who had come from the Guards, and it was a bit of a disaster, and Tony Brooks had voiced this. And Langley was also a Guards officer, and the Guards Mafia closed ranks, and they didn't like this criticism at all. So he was rejected for MI9 and thus for SIS. But he was invited along to room 055 at the War Office, where he was interviewed regarding his suitability for SOE. And the interviewer, who tested candidates in French, said his fluency far exceeds my own. So, you know, he was a really good candidate. So he went into the SOE training pipeline, firstly to Wambra, which is STS5, Wambra Manor, where he excelled in explosives and weapons. He had been given the cover name Alphonse for the training. And after that, he went up to Scotland to STS 25B and further training. He himself said some of the training wasn't very realistic, and the training staff thought that his attitude left something to be desired. And the reason for this was he already had experience. He'd done what the instructors had never ever done themselves. They were mainly from military backgrounds. This also happened to Nancy Wake when she went through the training. She you know, that are scaling obstacles and all this, and she said she'd never had to do it in France at all. She'd already had a successful career. But anyway, he went through the training, and again, weapons and explosives came to the forefront. In unarmed combat, I'll just quote, in the use of the FS fighting knife, Tony recalled the words of an instructor: "Never hit a chap with a knife downwards, always cut upwards, because the Almighty made us with armour plating up here, ribs and things, but he left all this, the stomach area, empty and unprotected. So always use a knife upwards. You either get his sex, his lunch, or his lungs by coming up from below." So he then went on to parachute school, Ringway, and then to Bewley. And he found the Bewley training excellent, and he thought it was very relevant, and it was mainly the tradecraft, and he did credit the Bewley training for a lot of well, for his survival in France. And he also, in the book, it mentioned that agents who ended up being captured or killed was often a result of them forgetting their Bewley training. And they were coached on cover stories, counter surveillance, use of safe addresses and so on. And he was sent as a final exercise up to Liverpool, and he had to do a reconnaissance and plan attacks on the docks while being hunted by the police, including a special branch. And he wasn't picked up, but he himself said that he really didn't gain much in the way of useful information. One of the instructors at Bewley that he held in high regard was Peter Follis, and Peter Follis stayed on and became the chief instructor to SIS after the war at their training establishment. So he's gone through the training and he's deployed to France. He goes to Thamesford, the Special Duty Squadron base. Gibraltar Farm was the SOE facility there. He goes through the drill for dispatching an agents, sanitizing their clothes and so on, and is dropped from a Halifax bomber near Limoges in France, and sets up the Pimento network near Toulouse, mainly involved in sabotage operations, largely against the rail network, including the attacks which slowed down the SS Division Das Reich, which was trying to get to D-Day to Normandy to help resist the invasion. So that was a big one. He was picked up, he was arrested, but his cover story held. The Bewley training kicked in, and he was released. At the end, he held the rank of major. He was awarded the DSO, the MC, and the Croix de Guerre, and was regarded as he was the youngest SOE agent, and was also regarded as one of the most effective. After the war, he worked for SIS in Bulgaria, in Egypt, and in Cyprus, and then transferred over to MI5 as the SIS representative in a counter penetration unit within, it was a joint unit within MI5. The book covers a lot more detail than what I've just talked about. It goes into a lot of the background of SOE, how it was set up, a bit more on the training and so on, and a lot of the personalities. It's a very detailed book altogether, and it really does add to the literature. Tony Brooks's name has come up in many of the other books and the histories, and it's great to see the full story told. Well worth reading.